are able to maximize what you are, then you can really see what you are and what you could have been. And it's one of the hardest things to get across, that you could be so much more than you can possibly imagine. And I mean that. I mean that literally. You can't even imagine what you could achieve, what you could be. You can think and like speculate, but I mean like to really internalize what you could have been, man. And it's a great thing if at some point you can look back and go, holy crap, I did that. Can you imagine? Me, did that. Amazing. And then you're gonna realize, wow, that's only one thing. There's so much more that you're capable of doing. And then you can actually genuinely raise your kids someday with that same sort of a mindset, mentality. Because you aren't just going to be talking from speculation, you'll be talking from experience. Hit the nerve with it, really. It's when you're not achieving and you see other people achieving what you could have achieved, what you could have done. And I mean, one thing that we almost never forgive our friends for is their successes. We can forgive our friends for anything, betrayal, lying, anything we can forgive them for. But none of us will ever be forgiven for our successes. You guys ever hear, well, I've asked before, there's a band, my favorite band, is a band called The Smiths. And if you don't know The Smiths, you should know The Smiths. They're the greatest band in musical history.
And they got really popular recently.
Have they?
Yeah.
Good. Good. They're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I have no idea why. The Smiths is like your favorite band's favorite band. Incredible band, incredible lyrics. But anyway, they have their singer's a guy named Morrissey. And he had a song when he went solo. It was called "We Hate It When Our Friends Become Successful." And that's just the chorus. We hate when our friends become successful. And the kind of like theme of the song is essentially, you know, I have a better singing voice than you do. How come I didn't make it? You know, oh, it should have been me. It could have been me. Everyone knows. Everybody says so. And it's essentially about exactly that. A person who believes that they could have been something, they could have done it. And why did that person make it and not me? I don't know. That's why this word, it strikes me, laziness. I don't exactly know what we mean by that. And I mean that, by the way. People will say sometimes like, oh, I'm lazy. I don't know what that means for most people. Like when you get, genuinely, what do you guys think of when you hear the word lazy? What does it mean to you?
Lacking enough or easy to do, like adequate effort.
Okay. Oh yeah? Lack of effort. So how can we say it like that, Doug? We say, oh, I'm just lazy. We say like we're tired. Laziness has nothing to do with being tired. Like you say like, oh, I'm just lazy. I don't want to do. I'm too lazy to do this work. Okay, well, would you like to go to a party? Hell yeah. So then it's not connected to being tired. Yeah. So it's like a refusal to do work. And so I don't know why there would be people who will talk about this character trait like it's a positive thing or like it's a neutral thing. Oh, I'm just lazy. Yeah, but what are you missing out on? And by the way, I don't understand why people get angry at you for being lazy. Like, if you were in a lazy band at the time, I'm glad you were in a lazy band at the time. Because that meant that there were more openings for the bands who were hardworking. It's just like, I was just talking about this today. I don't know why this keeps coming up. This is one of those things that makes me wonder if we are living in a simulation. So there's this principle in business which essentially says that the square root of your workforce is responsible for 50% of your production. So let's say you have 100 people working at your company. Can anyone tell me what's the square root of 100? 10. Good. So that means that 10 employees, like your top 10 employees, they're responsible for 50% of all of your production. The other 90% of people are responsible for the other 50% of your production. Make sense? So that means that you've got a whole bunch of people doing very little in any organization. You got a very few people who are doing most of your work. And then these will be the people who will eventually kind of become management, or they'll start their own companies. Maybe they'll rise up, who knows? But this is a tried and true thing. I mentioned this to one of my peers today, and they were trying to figure out, they're doing math on it, so I asked the class, raise your hand if you participate regularly. And like 5 students raised their hand, and one student was like, kind of, which, by the way, turned out to be exactly the square root of the class. Yeah.
Do I participate regularly?
Do you? Yeah. Yeah, you guys are, and this class is a little bit above that, but really look around how many people in here participate regularly. I'm not saying, I participated before, I'm saying regularly. Who does it regularly? It's about the square root of the class. It's a little bit more. Does that mean that the other percentage is lazy? No, what it means is that this percentage down here is depending on this percentage to get everything done, to carry the class, to carry the company, to carry whatever. Now, that's important, by the way, and we need to look at that stuff and see it for what it is. It isn't an indictment. It isn't, so 90% of you guys suck. No, what that tells you is that this is the group of people who are going to, well, first off, if you own the company, this is the group of people you really care about. And this will be the percentage of the company, by the way, that usually will, statistically, by the way, also complain the most. This is the percentage which will say things like, my boss doesn't care about me. Well, my God, why would they? You don't produce anything. But more than just that, okay. But do you care about your boss? Do you check in on your boss and genuinely ask how their day is going and genuinely care about them as a human being? It's like we hear this from time to time at meetings here with teachers. They'll say, our students want us to care about them, to take a personal interest in them. Do you guys take a personal interest in your teachers? You just want to go one way? You want the teachers to only care about you, and you don't want to go in any direction the other way? That's not how life works. And it's a terrible lesson to teach you that it's okay to do that, because then you end up in the workforce like this, and you wonder, how come my boss just gets rid of me? How come they're showing favoritism to certain people and not others? What that boss might know that you don't know is that they're in that square root who's producing who's responsible for half of the production. Maybe you just don't know what you don't know. Maybe you don't see it. And then maybe that person's, that's because they're just kissing ass. You mean they're working. Now, here's the dramatic question. Why are they doing that? Because they can. Because they're capable. This doesn't mean that they're the most talented group. This doesn't mean that they're the 10 most talented employees there. What it means is that they're the 10 employees who are willing to do the work, who are willing to produce. I would imagine, I don't have to imagine, I can tell you actually, we happen to know from the research, there are many in that bottom 90% who could be in that group. They simply choose not to, because they just want to get by. It's a matter of choice. It's like, I look around the room and I ask, genuinely ask yourself what grade you have in this class. And then ask yourself, what grade could you have in this class? Does anybody sit here and just go like, oh my God, Scallon demands so much from us. The work in that class is so hard. He gives us so much. You're responsible for writing 2 pages a week. A week! 2 pages a week. And then we go over stories and you got some questions to answer. And what happens if you answer the questions wrong? Nothing. And I look at it, unless you're just way off and your answer has nothing to do with it, I don't mark you off for it. But if you're trying and you're putting some effort into it, I believe if you work and you practice, you'll get good at it eventually, if you put time and effort into it. But think about how many of us do it. We just bullshit answers because we think Scallon's not going to care anyway, he's not going to notice. The real mind screw is going to be, maybe he notices and he just doesn't think it's worth it to point it out to me because he knows I'm in that percentage of people. Maybe that's why he doesn't point it out. Do you really think it's because your answers are so great at bullshitting and you're so smart with all of your degrees? Oh wait, I'm sorry, that's me. With all of your life experience, no wait, that's me too. With all of your, I don't know. You really think you get away? None of us gets away with anything. We're allowed to go with things. But man, I don't know about you, man, but I'd be insulted. If someone let me get away with bullshit, I'd be insulted. That tells you what they think about you. I'll let that simmer for a little while. You answer questions. And so, what you're learning here is that you could be up there. You could be. But I could be, but I won't. I'm just too lazy. It's not lazy, man. You're adopting a choice of mediocrity. And whatever you practice, you're going to get good at. If you practice running, you'll get good at running. If you practice swimming, you'll get good at swimming. If you practice singing, you'll get good at singing. Provided that you're doing these things with proper form, with proper instruction and all that, you'll get good at whatever you practice. If you just jump up and down every day for no purpose, you'll get good at jumping up and down every day with no purpose. So the question is, what are you practicing? Because whatever you're practicing, that's what you're going to get good at. Are you getting good at just bullshitting your way through and getting by and just kind of skimming through and getting like modified graduation plans and stuff like that? Or are you getting good at maximizing yourself? Because that's what this really is, the people who are up here. It's about maximizing yourself. Why should you participate? Because you've got something to say. And how do you practice getting good at saying things? You practice saying things. Are you ever in life going to have to be able to express what somebody else thinks? Am I ever going to have to hear what somebody says and interpret it? Yeah. If you don't think so, you must never have been in a relationship before. You must never have had interactions with other human beings before. You must have never had misunderstandings and disagreements before. That's all that this is. It's practicing how to understand what somebody says, make sense of it in the best possible way, to internalize it and respond to it. All this is communication, learning how to do that. And communicating with things that we might not understand at first, but that we can also understand that there's a far deeper meaning to what's being said than just what's being said, just what's on the page. Yeah, if you fail, it's a punishment for your laziness, but the worst punishment is watching other people succeed when you could have succeeded. When you really could have succeeded. There's a reason I tell you I graduated with a 1.8 grade point average. Because that means that, and then fast forward and I get accepted to Harvard. That means you could do it too. Possible. It's possible. But why was I doing so badly? I wasn't going to classes. I wasn't doing work. But what was I doing instead? I wasn't on my phone, man. I wasn't at Starbucks. My baseball team had a batting cage. I would go down to the batting cage and take batting practice. I made it to all league, all CIF. Got to play baseball for Division I at UCLA. So that time away from there was put into something else. It doesn't really matter what you do as long as you do something and do it well. Practice it, get good at it. Put yourself in that top 10%. Put yourself in that top square root. Why? Because you can. And you're never going to know what you could have been until you become what you can. Until you are able to maximize what you are. Then you can really see what you are and what you could have been. And it's one of the hardest things to get across. That you could be so much more than you can possibly imagine. And I mean that. I mean that literally. You can't even imagine what you could achieve, what you could be. Like you can think and speculate, but to really internalize what you could have been, man. And it's a great thing if at some point you can look back and go, holy crap, I did that. Can you imagine? Me, did that. Amazing. And then you're going to realize, wow, that's only one thing. There's so much more that you're capable of doing. And then you can actually genuinely raise your kids someday with that same sort of a mindset and mentality. Because you aren't just going to be talking from speculation. You'll be talking from experience. I did this, I did that, I was capable of this, I was capable of that. And so therefore you are too. And you won't accept anything less. Because you're going to want the best for them. If you want the best for yourself to be there, how much more will you want that for your kids? But then they have a lot of pressure. Good. I'm saying this with all the love in the world, man. Please understand what I mean when I say this. Some of you don't have nearly enough pressure on you. And you think, oh, my parents expect so much of me. Do they? Do you have a 4.0? Are you playing a bunch of sports and clubs? Are you doing all of that really? Or is it just, I don't want to, no, but they want me to do things and I don't really want to? Okay, that's not really pressure then, man. That's just a disagreement. Some of us need a hell of a lot more pressure because that's the very thing that makes diamonds. You could be. You could be. But I'll leave it with this. Walk up and down Highland Avenue. People who are working jobs they never wanted to work. Doing things they never saw themselves doing because they accepted less than what they could have been. If you're doing a job, if you're providing for your family, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing. promise you, man, if you're sitting behind that counter all day, at some point it's gonna gnaw at you what you could have been. And maybe work first to find out. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah.